Good morning, class 7 students. So, today I'm going to teach you a chapter from the Mysterious Affair as Styles. Now, this is what do you call uh, a very high profile case in those days, and even today when we have, and people get excited about a murder. And so, we will go through this chapter. Let us go. And yes, in Styles Court, an Essex country manor, England. Emily Inglethorpe, the owner, has been murdered. She was previously married to Mr. Cavendish. Emily later married a young man, Mr. Alfred Inglethorpe. In the household stays the stepsons. Stepsons means her a present husband's children from his previous marriage, John and Lawrence Cavendish. John's wife, Mary Cavendish, Evelyn Howard, Emily's companion. Hercule Parrot has been brought to Styles to investigate the crime by Arthur Hastings. Now, Arthur Hastings is the speaker of this story. Now, this story was written by Agatha Christie. When I was in school, I used to read a lot of Agatha Christie's books. It was in the library, school library, and this time the school library will open up, and you could. I think I have also told father to bring some of these books, so you could go and read them, and this will be very helpful. Anyways, let us continue with the story. Now, the papers means the newspapers, of course, had been full of the tragedy. Glaring headlines, sandwich biographies of every member of the household. So they wrote every detail of every member in the household because there was the murder here. Subtle innuendos, the usual familiar tag about the police having a clue. Innuendos means an indirect rude remark about somebody or something. So it was a slack time. The war was momentarily inactive. The war has stopped, and the newspapers seized with avidity. Means they were enthusiastic about something. Right, like recently you must have saw one of the celebrity had committed suicide, and you saw the newspapers, the news channels were all over him, and they were blaming this one, that one, and I mean, everybody was making their own stories. So it's just like that. On this crime in fashionable life, same thing. A celebrity. The mysterious affairs of Styles was the topic of the moment. Naturally, it was very annoying for the Cavendishes. The house was constantly besieged by reporters. Now, it was very annoying because reporters were always outside the house to ask them some questions, and who were constantly denied admission, but who continued to haunt the village and the grounds where they lay in wait with cameras. So people are waiting in cameras to ask you questions because you're a celebrity. For any unworried members of the household, we all lived in the blast of publicity. The Scotland Yard men came and went, examining, questioning. Lynx eyes. Now, Lynx eyes means eyes like lynx, a wild animal of the cat family. The Scotland Yard is one of the best detective agency in the world. So they came. So they were examining, they were questioning members, and after breakfast, uh, yeah, Lynx eyed and reserved a tongue. After breakfast, Dorcas came up to me rather mysteriously and asked if she might have a few seconds or few words with me. So suddenly, what is it, Dorcas? Well, it's just this, sir. You'll be seeing the Belgian gentleman today, perhaps. So she told him, you'll be seeing the Belgian gentleman today, perhaps. I nodded. Well, sir, you know how he asked me so particular if the mistress or anyone else had a green colored dress. Yes, yes, you have found one. My interest was aroused. It means Aroused means increased. His interest had increased. No, not that, sir. But since then I've remembered what the young gentleman, John and Lawrence, the young gentleman, John and Lawrence was still the young gentleman to Dorcas, called the dressing up box. Is up in the front attic. Now, what is an attic? A room or space used for storing things. So sometimes it could be on the above the first floor. Sometimes it could be at the bottom, below the ground floor, an attic. So a great chest full of old clothes and fancy dresses and what not. And it came to me sudden like there might be a green dressed amongst them. So if you tell the Belgian gentleman. So the author saying, yes, I will tell him, Dorcas, I promise. Thank you very much, sir. A very nice gentleman he is, sir, and quite different class from them, those detectives from London. Means he was a very good gentleman, but he was different from those Scotland Yard detectives who goes prying. Prying means trying to find out information, prying about and asking questions. Dear old Dorcas, as she stood there with her honest face upturned to mine, I thought what a fine specimen she was of the old-fashioned servant that is so fast dying out. So he was thinking that Dorcas was a fine specimen of the old-fashioned servant, and the Dorcas was a servant who should work in the house. I thought as I might as well go down to the village at once and look up Poitro, but I met him halfway coming up to the house, and at once gave him Dorcas's message. So when he met Petro, he gave the message what Dorcas told him. So he gave the message, told him the message. We entered the house by one of the windows. There was no one in the hall, and we went straight up to the attic. Sure enough, there was a chest, a fine old piece, all studded with brass nails and with full to overflowing with every imaginable type of garment. He seemed somewhat apathetic, apathetic, indifferent in the search, as though he expected no great result from it. Suddenly he gave an explanation. Suddenly he got excited. What is this? Look, the chest was nearly empty, and there, reposing right at the bottom. Now, reposing means kept in a particular place. Reposing right at the bottom was a magnificent black beard. Oh, said Poitras. Oh. He turned it over in his hands, examining it closely. New, he remarked. See, this one is new. Quite new. Yes, quite new. After a moment's hesitation, he replaced it in the chest. Now he hesitated, then he put it back into the chest. He went straight to the pantry, where we found Dorcas busily polishing her silver. She was polishing all the silverware. Poitras wished her good morning with Gallic politeness, means connected with or considered typical of France or its people, and went on. We have been looking through that chest, Dorcas, and I am much obliged to you for mentioning it. So we went through the chest, and thank you for mentioning it so we could go through it. There is indeed a fine collection there. Are they often used? May I ask? So he asked Dorcas, are those things in the chest used, or are they just kept there? Well, sir, not very often nowadays, though from time to time we do have what the young gentlemen call dress up night. So Dorcas said, not every day, they don't use it from time to time. It's not every day it's used. Maybe after a week, maybe after a month, when they go out for a party, which is called a dress up night. And very funny it is sometimes, sir. Mr. Lawrence, he's wonderful, most comic. I shall never forget the night he came down as the Shah of Persia. I think he called it a sort of Eastern king. It was mine, Dorcas, he says. You'll have to be very, very respectful. Mind, Dorcas, mind your words. Now he told her, be careful with your words, be respectful. Now these evenings must have been great fun, said Pytra generally. Now generally means in a friendly and cheerful manner. I suppose Mr. Lawrence wore that fine black beard in the chest upstairs when he was the Shah of Persia. Persia. So he's saying, I suppose that he wore that beard when he dressed up like the Shah of Persia. He did not have a beard, sir, replied Dorcas, smiling. And well I know it, for he borrowed two skeins, a long piece of wool or thread or yarn that is loosely tied together, of my black wool to make it with. And I'm sure it looked wonderfully natural at a distance. So he said, no, he didn't use that beard. He took a piece of wool from me, and from a distance it looked natural. I didn't know as there was a beard up there at all. It must have been got quite lately, I think. There was a red wig, I know, but nothing else in the way of hair. So Dorcas says, nothing else. I don't think there was a beard there. There was a red wig. So Dorcas knows nothing about that black beard, said Pirate thoughtfully as he walked on to the hall again. Do you think it is the one? I whispered eagerly. Petra nodded. Yes, I do. You noticed it had been trimmed. No. Ah, yes, it was cut exactly the shape of Mr. Ingletop's, and I found one or two snipped hairs. Hastings, this affair is very, very deep. Means this case is very, very deep. It's going to be a long time before we could solve this case. Who put it in the chest, I wonder? Someone with a good deal of intelligence, remarked, remarked Poitrot dryly. You realize that he chose the one place in the house to hide it where its presence would not be remarked. He said, this fellow hid it in such a place that nobody would expect it to be. Yes, he is intelligent, but we must be more intelligent than him. If he is intelligent, we must be one step further than him. We must be so intelligent that he does not suspect us of being intelligent at all. There, mon ami, you will be of great assistance to me. So he told him, you will be of great assistance to me. I was pleased with the compliment. There had been times when I hardly thought that that pirate. Okay, I was pleased with the compliment. There had been times when I hardly thought that pirate appreciated me at my true worth. Yes, he continued, staring at me thoughtfully. You will be invaluable. Now, invaluable means extremely useful to him. Yes, he continued, staring at me thoughtfully. This was naturally gratifying, but Patra's next words were not so welcome. I must have an ally in the house, he observed reflectively. You have me, I protested. So Patra told him, you must have an ally. He said, yes, you have me. True, but you are not sufficient. So you are there, but you are not sufficient. I still need somebody who's trained. I was hurt and showed it. Poitrot hurried to explain himself. I want somebody who is not associated with us in any way. So he said, I want somebody who is not associated with us in any way. Here comes Miss Howard, said Poitras. Suddenly, she is the very person, but I am in a black books. So he said, I want her, but I am in a black books. Means he's not on good terms with her. Since I cleared Mr. Ingletop, still we can, but try. With a nod that was barely civil, means with a nod that was civil means not that friendly. It was almost not friendly. Miss Howard assented, means agreed to Poitras's request for a few minutes' conversation. We went into the little morning room, and Poitras closed the door. Do you remember, Mademoiselle, that I once asked you to help me? It is this. Do you still believe that Ingletop's husband is a criminal? Now, Poitras asks Mrs. Howard this. You needn't think any. You needn't think your pretty explanations influenced me in the slightest. I'll admit that it wasn't he who bought the medicine at the chemist shop. So Miss Howard said, no, it wasn't him who bought the medicine at the chemist shop. If I'm convinced, he did it. Yes, he did it. It doesn't matter a jot to me how he did it. It doesn't matter how he did it. Miss Howard, do you remember a conversation that took place on the day of my friend's arrival here? Do you remember affirming that if a crime had been committed and anyone you loved had been hurt, you felt certain that you would know by instinct who the criminal was, even if you were quite unable to prove it? So Poitras asks us, do you remember that affirming that a crime had been committed, that by your instinct you could tell somebody who did it, even if you could not prove it? Poet curtly, in a way that may appear rude, your instinct is not against Mr. Ingletop. You wish to believe he committed the crime. You believe him capable of committing it, but your instinct tells you he did not commit it. It tells you more. Shall I go on? So Poitras told Mrs. Howard, Poitras told Mrs. Howard that you wish to believe that he committed the crime. You believe that he is capable, and your instinct, but your instinct does not tell you that he committed. She was staring at it, fascinated, and made a slight affirmative movement of the hand. Affirmative means yes. You are trying to drown and stifle means prevent, your instinct, which tells you another name. Miss Howard cried wildly, flinging up her hands. She got angry. I don't know what put such a vile, such a dreadful idea into my head. Don't ask me about it, continued Miss Howard, because I shan't tell you. I won't admit it, even to myself. I must be mad to think of such a thing. So Poitrot nodded as if he was satisfied. I'm going to ask you nothing. It is enough for me that it is as I thought, and I too have an instinct. We are working together towards a common end. So he said, even I have an instinct. So both of us are working together for a common end. You will help me in spite of yourself. I will ask you nothing, but you will be my ally. You will not be able to help yourself. You will do the only thing that I want of you. Means he's telling her that you will help me, and that's it. You will watch. Now, Evelyn Howard bowed her head in agreement. Yes, I can't help doing what I am, that I am always watching, always hoping I shall be proved wrong. There, said Petra, looking after her. goes a very valuable ally. That woman, Hastings, has got brains as well as a heart. So he said that woman has got brains as well as a heart because uh, she was suspecting the murder of the lady by her husband, but her instincts were not telling her. So her heart was not agreeing to that. I did not reply. You and Miss Howard seem to know what you are talking about, I observed coldly. Perhaps you don't realize that I'm still in the dark. So the author tells him, I'm still in the dark. What you are talking about, I don't know. It's only you to understand what you were talking about. Enlighten me, means tell me more. Explain to me, will you? Poitras studied me attentively for a moment or two. Then, to my intense surprise, he shook his head decidedly. No, my friend, two is enough for a secret. He said, no, I don't need to tell you. What I spoke with her, it is just between her and me. Well, I think it is very unfair to keep back facts from me. Every fact I know is in your possession. You can draw your own deductions using information. Deduction means using information available to understand or find the answers to a problem. Hmm. From them. This time it is a question of ideas, you see, he says sadly. You have no instincts. It was intelligence you were requiring just now, I pointed out. So the two often go together, said Poitras enigmatically. Now it's a mysterious way that is difficult to understand. The remark seemed to utterly irrelevant, and I did not even take the trouble to answer it. He didn't understand, he did not even answer it. But I decided that if I made any interesting and important discoveries, as no doubt I should, I would keep them to myself. So he also thought if he made any discoveries or came to know anything, he would keep it to himself and not tell anybody, and surprise Poitras with the ultimate result. At the end, he will give the information. There are times when it is one's duty to assert oneself. Now, this is taken from the extracted from the Mysterious Affair as Styles by Agatha Christie. So today is so much. I'll send you the question answers also, and this week I'll be doing two chapters. So for now, bye.